Conversations from the Zoom Room.
Hi everybody, Bill here. We have a really exciting episode of Conversations from the Zoom Room for you today. It's called Reopen Eyecare, and it's all about the Vision Council's very rich and robust initiative to provide information and resources to help you reopen eye care. We'll hear from Dr. Katie Grenier, Dr. Justin Manning, and of course Dr. Gary Gerber, who's not my cousin, but he is my friend. We're going to hear all about all the tools that they have, and last but not least, we're going to learn about the significant impact that the film Dirty Dancing has had on all of our lives. Take it away, Conversations from the Zoom Room.
Hi, my name's Katie Grenier. I am an optometrist and the COO at Northeast Ohio Eye Surgeons. We're an OD-MD practice with 4 ophthalmologists and 8 optometrists. And during the COVID shutdown, my main goal was to create a plan for reopening our office. We had to cancel over 3,000 patients and 500 surgeries. And so we're working hard to get caught back up. And I serve on the advisory council for reopeneyecare.com. Thanks to my Ohio State relationship with Dr. Justin Manning.
Right. I am Dr. Justin Manning. I'm the Executive Vice President of Professional Strategies at Healthy Eyes Advantage. HEA being a big part of the, kind of brains behind the launch of reopeneyecare.com. And I got roped in as an additional doctor voice and as the individual to kind of build an advisory board and advisory council. And Katie was the first that came to mind as an expert voice, and really as the site has evolved over time, listening to the input from all of the users and the optometrists, the opticians, the ophthalmologists who use the site, really building out content and evaluating the site in a way that the stuff that's there makes sense for those who are using it. And it's been a fun time.
And next up, not my cousin, Gary Gerber.
Yeah, just so we're clear, not that I don't like the guy, but I'm not Bill's cousin because everybody asks you guys related, so we're not.
Yeah.
Although we have a lot of common interests, maybe we could be, who knows. So Dr. Gary Gerber, I am a optometrist. I practiced for 22 years in New Jersey. I sold my practice a long time ago. I started doing consulting. I have a company called The Power Practice that I own and we run, and we work with doctors all over the country. Obviously, COVID got us crazy, super busy with all our docs all over the country. We're in about 42 states. And our job is to make our doctors profitable. It kind of transitioned from make them profitable to make sure they don't go out of business, which was new for us, and just like everybody else. I also have another company, Treehouse Eyes. We're a myopia management company. We do myopia care for kids. We have, as of Saturday, 20 locations around the country. So we had similar challenges there. Make sure that they reopen quickly, expeditiously, safely. It's 100% kids, but every kid comes in with an adult. And as far as Reopen Eye Care, I'm one of the founders. It kind of came about from my radio show when I did a kind of industry kind of forum over 2 nights. And I wanted to come up with an idea just to keep the buzz going with industry supporting docs. So that's kind of the genesis of my involvement with Reopen Eye Care.
So the first question is for Gary, and it's really, what is Reopen Eye Care, and how did it come about?
So yeah, let me start with a little deeper how it came about, and I'll tell you what it is. It came about because I was doing my radio show, the Power Hour episode, and kind of right when COVID was just kind of ramping up, I said, we're going to have to do something. We have a pretty big megaphone to the industry, so I kind of felt almost an obligation. What can we do? We're hearing a lot of things from clients, a lot of panic about what am I going to do, and there was a lot of panic then, which seems like in COVID years, like a lifetime ago. Well, how am I going to close? What's the proper way to close? And now it's like, well, okay, I guess you just close, right? And now it's like, once they were closed, how do we get reopened? And because of the Power Practice connection, I thought, wow, we really have an obligation to our docs and I was talking to industry guys, I thought, everybody's affected by this. They have more zeros on their balance sheet, but the zeros go all the way down to their bottom lines. Everybody is affected by this. So what can independent ECPs, which are the guys that we work with, what can they learn from these multinational, gigantic companies? And let me see if I can circle the wagons and get all those guys on one show at the same time. So we had some great dialogue on the shows. We had a huge audience, which showed there was a significant demand. And afterwards, I contacted them. I said, we gotta keep this going because there's a lot of demand. And that led to several Zoom meetings with 9 of us, I believe, 8 or 9 of us, which led to a website, which is reopeneyecare.com, which is a collection of relevant content broken up in usable kind of chunks, if you will, so you can get through it. And we try to keep it topical and relevant to the issue at hand. So it is a website, but it's a repository of useful information to make sure that you can get through this. And it looks like this is going to continue for a while.
Yeah, well, thanks for taking such a great leadership role and doing so much for the industry. You really you have a great voice, and I just heard earlier today from a client we had a Zoom with, and we were going over a design plan with them, and they reached out a couple minutes beforehand and said, we're running a little bit late, we're doing our staff meeting, and then we got on the line. What's staff meeting? What are you focusing on? They said, we're using Reopen Eyecare as one of our guideposts. So that was really cool to hear. So great info. So let's go around with the rest of you, and if you could perhaps expand on what your role is. Why don't we start with you, Justin?
So my role with Reopen Eyecare is to develop, to build an advisory board and to lead the advisory board. And again, knowing that, as Gary said, the originators of the site were all leaders within the industry, which brings a wealth of knowledge, a wealth of business experience. And, as they say, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. And I certainly am in the right room when it comes to this group of individuals. But we as industry folks are not on the ground seeing patients in the practice day in and day out. And so we knew that the site needed input from those that were actually utilizing the resources and needed the resources and could actually say, this is a great site. I've utilized X, Y, and Z, but by the way, I also need something else. I need help in this specific area. And so the advisory board was created to provide that voice and to bring in, and again, it's titled Reopen Eyecare because it's not just for optometrists. The recent data, it is widely used across the industry, from optometrists to ophthalmologists to opticians to other industry professionals as well. And so we wanted to make sure that each had a voice for the content and evaluating what's on there and really providing a voice to how the site needs to change to make it more usable, more efficient for a busy practice like Katie's. Trying to ramp back up, see patients as quickly and safely as possible and get through the backlog. Can you get to the site? Can you leverage the data that's on there in a way that is effective and efficient all at the same time?
Awesome. How about you, Katie? What's your role in all this?
So I'm part of the board, and Justin brought together an amazing team of really smart people and just diverse backgrounds. So we have an optician, we have private practice owners, a surgeon, myself in an ODMD kind of administrative role as well. And so we meet pretty much weekly, sometimes even more often. And we review the new content that's on there. We suggest changes. So we spend a lot of time looking through the different pages and the content and saying what should stay, what should go, how we can make things more searchable, how people can get quick nuggets of information. And part of my role really was talking about who else needed this information. So we made sure that, the practice administrators and the technicians were included because they're looking for that too, for their doctors. And to be part of these staff meetings, like you were just talking about, they need that information quick and easy. And so we've helped as the council or the board to help make that palatable.
Gary, who's the audience?
I think it's anybody that has a phoropter at the ready, or has ever touched a pair of glasses or a contact lens or a laser, or has any interest in eyes.
Okay, so pretty much the entire community then.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, like, how it's affected all of you. I mean, this is the biggest, calamity, really, collective calamity that I think all of us have experienced. 9/11 was huge, but that was different, obviously. So how have you done through that? Katie, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I saw someone online called it a Corona coaster, and so you definitely have your good days and bad days. And normally I've never had the luxury of working from home, as most optometrists don't. So it was kind of cool to navigate that at first with telemedicine and just catching up on administrative projects and brainstorming. But then after a while, you start to really miss your patients and your interaction with people at work. And then you get back to work and you're wearing a mask all day and you're getting, all the CO2 headaches and the things that everyone's talking about where you're nauseous and you're not drinking enough water. And so you go through that spiral of, this patient care is so much harder. And then you have that patient that has not seen anyone for 8 weeks. They ran out of their glaucoma drops. They didn't know what they could do. And you help them and you say, okay, this coaster is worth it. We are connecting, we're doing our job still, and things feel better. So I feel like these people are placed there in your clinic that you just have to be thankful that you still have a job to go to. We are essential workers, they need us. And I think that's where I'm at now. I feel like we're back in the flow. There's certainly stressful days. We're trying to catch up on profitability and working longer hours to see these patients. So I can't say that I'm riding on easy street by any means. I'm tired. But you got to be a cheerleader when you're running a practice and make sure that everyone else, your staff, are feeling good and your doctors are at the ready every day. And most importantly, your patients are getting, the best care that they can during this time.
There you go. Yeah, it's definitely hit hard. And I think, for me personally, it's been a huge time of growth. I've talked to a lot of my friends who are leaders in the business, and we kind of connected on a whole different level, like really opening up about the struggles and the people really that we need to keep employed, number one, and number two, the clients that we serve. And it's been a huge growth experience for me personally. It's been very difficult, but fortunately, we're doing okay. How about you, Justin?
It's, as Mike Tyson said, everybody's got a plan until you get punched in the face. And and I think the reality is we all have, and we, in a very good way, we've all had to change. We've all had to look at the way we do business, the way that we, from an HEA standpoint, the way that we serve our members, and there are some advantages that pop up when you're forced to change and you're forced to look at your situation differently, because it's far easier just to stay in the day to day. And it's certainly been weird for me not traveling, and I think I was out of town once a week from the beginning of the year until end of February, and then being at home this long. There was a period of time, my two kids, I have two very young kids, one who's 5 and one who's almost 3, and they were home for a period of 8 weeks, and my wife worked full time for the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee, so we did a lot of, hey, do you have a meeting at 2 o'clock? No, okay, I'm going to schedule a meeting then. And I mean, there's just all of this crazy planning, and my kids became regulars on my Zoom meetings, and you just learn to adapt and you learn to change. And the benefit is I've enjoyed, now that my kids are back in daycare and I can actually be productive, but it's been nice having my wife at home work. We could spend a half an hour here or there in the middle of the day, but there, as with everything, there's benefits and there's challenges, and you have to take each day and celebrate those benefits and the good days, and recognize and accept and move through the challenges that this has caused, and it's certainly been that. But I think in the end, we're not there yet, but I think it will leave all of us on a personal note, from a business standpoint, from an industry standpoint. I think it will leave us for the better, but we have to keep slogging through. And there are days where it feels like, hey, we're making progress, we're getting someplace, and then something else happens and we get punched in the face again. You just have to, get through it. But it's for all those reasons, it's been good, it's been bad, it's been ugly, and all of everything in between.
It's been all that. Yeah, I sure do miss seeing everybody at conferences and so forth. But at the same time, through video, thank God for video conference, right? I mean, without it, we would have been really somewhat cut off. Question for you, Gary. What specific resources are available?
Think of it this way. Think of walking into a library, and it's the let's say Library of Congress, which I'm assuming is really big. I've never been there, but I'm assuming they have like every book on earth is probably there.
Yeah.
And you get to go to the How to Survive COVID section. And then once you're there, now you got, instead of 1 billion books, you have like 1,000. You don't have time to read 1,000.
Yeah.
So How to Survive COVID, what's most important to Eyecare, and what's most important right now that I need to deal with.
Yeah.
So, and then from there, it's got everything, broken down by the financial side, staff, HR, things, marketing things, depending on what your challenge du jour is, you'll be able to hopefully find something that's relatively topical.
That's great. And so for Justin and Katie, question for you, just about updates. Like, how often is the information updated?
The site is updated really on a weekly basis from everything from changes to the structure of the site, and that's probably one of the biggest changes that have come out of the advisory board. When you get to this site, and again, as Gary said, the goal was to bring the content together and make it easy to access. But even in that, from a busy day-to-day standpoint within practice, the advisory board determined that the site really needed that much more of an easier way to get directly to the content in that 5 to 10 minutes that they may have between patients, just to get some information that they can put into practice down the road. And so the site has changed now to have an assessment at the beginning, what specific information from a practice standpoint, where are you in the process? Are you kind of newly reclosed because you're in a hotspot area? Are you fully opened, or are you still sort of slowly phasing into ramping back up to seeing your patients? And so you put all that information in, what type of professional you are, and the site will generate 6 specific articles based upon that assessment. There's now some new original content versus collated and curated content from the leaders in the group. There's original content, again, based upon the demands and the requests that the advisory board has brought. And there's some new, we have an advisory board meeting later this week. We're going to discuss about kind of the next original content that needs to be created. So it's definitely updated on a weekly basis.
And Katie, just curious, who provides the content?
It comes from everywhere, and Justin might be able to answer that in a little more detail because he's more behind the scenes than I am. But I think some areas that I've found most helpful are, peer-reviewed articles that are coming out that, I normally wouldn't be able to search for exactly what I was looking for, and now these are the most relevant. C.D.C content that can be very overwhelming, you'll find on there. Probably one of the most searchable areas is, what do you do if someone has COVID in your practice, or how do you go about, reopening if someone's been exposed and you had to shut down? So I think that's a huge area, and some of that's original content from people that have gathered that information. And the search function I wanted to make sure we mentioned is really helpful at the top. You can start typing a couple letters and it will start guessing what you're looking for and give you lots of choices under that. So if you're just thinking, contact lenses, can I still do contacts in COVID? It'll bring up a lot of material on that without you having to put much effort into your search function.
Just a little bit further, so how has it evolved? We know it launched in May, right? And what are some of the recent changes that have been implemented?
When it launched in May, it was really a big transition period where a lot of practices were just starting to put in place their steps to reopen.
Sure.
And even if they didn't close, they were still maintaining essential care and providing, say, emergency or chronic medical care. as they started to see more patients, they were doing more comprehensive exams, their opticals were more engaged. The timing in May, where we are now in the beginning of August, is far different. At the beginning of May, when the site was launched, a number of practices, especially in the East Coast and West Coast, were still closed, while those in the central part of the country were phasing reopening. Now a majority of practices are open and they're seeing comprehensive care. Now things may be changing. The PPP, the loan, the whole loan process of getting your PPP, how to use the funds. Now it's transitioning to applying for the forgiveness. So the content, because it's updated on a weekly basis, has evolved and changed, and things that aren't relevant anymore have been taken down. And again, the new content's been featured, and it's really based upon where the industry, where the businesses, the practices are in this specific time. And Gary can certainly explain even more.
Yeah, I don't have much to add to Justin. I think it's evolved as the problem has morphed. Which originally, like I said, was really just panic around money.
Yeah.
I remember one of the really hot topics was, what if I don't get my PPP money? Like, what do I do? And now, pretty much if you wanted it, you got it, unless you did something really stupid on your application. And I even heard a couple of those went back second time and they got it. Same thing with EIDL money. So it's kind of tried to stay very, very topical. And then to Katie's point, the search thing was not there because we just didn't have time. We were so busy curating and reading articles and sending them back and forth amongst us. Like, what do you think of this one? I got something better. I put it up. We'll deal with it later. Just trying the best we could. So I think it's just gotten a little less frenetic and chaotic and more focused on what do we got to deal with like right now.
We just talked a lot about, do we need to rename the website because of what Gary said? We're not just reopening, we're trying to maintain and survive. But surviving Eyecare didn't sound right, so we're still working on a new name for that. But I would say if we looked at the site when it first started to where it is now, I mean, the word PPE, my 4-year-old knows what that is now, but there were, information on what is PPE and what do we think we need? Do we need hazmat suits or do we need a cloth mask? And so now we're getting more defined on that, and good videos and content that's published on, how much different masks protect us differently. And so it's just become so much more sophisticated over the past few months.
I'm curious, you work in a very large practice, obviously. Have you had COVID affect the practice directly?
So I'm going to knock on a lot of wood here because we really haven't. During shutdown, we had 2 employees that were exposed, but actually were able to get testing and did not test positive. Okay. So to my knowledge, we definitely have not had any doctors or staff, no patients that have come forward that have said they were in the building with COVID. So we've been very lucky, and we are right outside Cuyahoga County in Ohio and in Summit County, which was in a red phase recently. So we have a lot of precautionary ways, and we've really just talked with our staff, and we can't mandate them to make sure they're following social distance at all times, but we give very very, very strong conversations with them that if we're going to be in healthcare, we have to do this. And I think they've taken it really serious, which I'm really, really, really proud of.
So coming back to the site for a minute, are there any new features? We talked about predictive search, but any other features that you all are really excited about?
Certainly the assessment tool and the as you come into the site, the way the site pulls the information together, specifically what you're looking for. So instead of, Gary's example of going into the Library of Congress, it really pares it down automatically to, the information that you need. But that assessment tool then will deliver that information right away. I think from an excitement standpoint of what's coming and what further coming are the original content and how to kind of even break the articles, the resources that are there down further and make it more bite-sized, make it more consumable. And again, having that content right there, exactly, they say, write the book that you need to read.
Mm-hmm.
And like content from the side of the user, that's what this original content is going to be. It's exactly that which you need right here, right now. So I'm really excited about what's coming and how the site can even deliver more actionable information right at the time that it's needed.
It's really helpful to gather the data. So, before we didn't really know who was clicking, but now that we're asking those questions, we can find who's actually showing up to the site. And I think we are not shocked that it's a little bit of everybody. So it does mean we need to make sure we're creating content for all different parts of Eyecare.
I've been hearing from a lot of our clients and my friends about the changes that they've made, obviously, to deal with COVID. But I'm also hearing a lot about these aha moments around patient care and the sequence in which we're dealing with patients, and also financially on things like capture rate and multiple pair sales going up as a result of this new modality. So on the positive side, what are some of your thoughts, and I'll just throw this out, about the positive impact of all of these changes?
This is funny. We have run patients every 10 minutes and sometimes double booked as needed forever.
Yep.
And that wasn't working well with social distancing for us. And so at a meeting, someone said, can we do every 15 minutes on our template? And it was like, oh no, our practice management system doesn't allow 5-minute increments. Well, of course it did.
Yeah.
It was just kind of this myth that everyone thought, oh, we have to do it this way. And so we really had our management think outside the box. And so we are successfully scheduling every 15 minutes. It's made everyone really efficient. We're practicing social distancing, but we need that time for cleaning in between patients. And we were able to add a little bit to the morning and end of the day to make up for those, slots that we didn't have like we did pre-COVID. And people move faster. They really just get to the meat of the exam. We don't have family and friends coming into the room, which is kind of nice because that can slow you down a little bit, but we do get them on speakerphone. So we offer that they can listen in on the exam, and some have been on FaceTime. So they're still getting that interaction. And we don't move patients nearly as much. We don't use our dilation room if we don't have to. And we have just seen happier patients for wait times, happier staff because they're not lingering after, the patients are supposed to be gone for the day and they're still in the chair. So like we all had said, there's going to be some positives that come out of this, and ours is definitely how we can better patient flow in our clinics.
Great. What are you saying?
Similar. I think it's a classic case of how do you do more with less.
Yeah.
And our doctors pretty much across the country, we had a couple guys in July, like their best month ever.
Right.
And these weren't, some guys say, well, I did 40% better than July last year. Yeah, well, your practice is only a year old. Anybody can do that. But, we had guys that, they're veterans, been doing this for a long time, that just have been crushing it. And I don't think it's just pent up demand, because they are spacing out appointments, not as much as they first were, because once they got into the mojo of cleaning the room, they realized, if I was booking an appointment for 20 minutes and I changed it to an hour, it doesn't take me 40 minutes to clean a room.
Yeah.
I just freaked out the first week because I had no idea what was going to happen. So yeah, definitely numbers are up, capture rate is up. What we're doing now is we're proactively priming the pump to keep the capture rate up by letting patients know that just remember, when you come in to see us, we do sell glasses. You don't have to go elsewhere. You don't have to get your temperature taken again. You don't have to go through all those questions. You don't have to wash your hands again. Like, we'll just do it all here and get it done. It's everything we were always doing, but we're putting it front and center because they're thinking about it now. So yeah, that's been good. And the last thing is just using telehealth, where we should have been doing it 10 years ago. Just never thought to do it. Asymptomatic contact lens checkup in a healthy person with a healthy eye. Yeah, I think you can do that virtually. And it just never struck us to do it. We're doing, which we never thought, our myopia business, we're doing telehealth, initial visit telehealth consults. I actually pushed my partner back and I said, we can't do that. Like, that's just can't be done. And it's working. We just never thought we could do it. So you put a gun to our head, we're going to make it work. We don't want to go out of business either. So it's working.
There you go. How about you, Justin? What are you saying on the upside?
Yeah, I think, when you look at the market in general, one big driver is convenience. And, when you think about how, from speaking of optical sales, for example, you always want to look at it from the context of how can we reduce the friction that is between here's your prescription and here's your credit card to purchase the eyewear that you're prescribing. And to Gary's point, that's exactly the case. We're driven by convenience, and now absolutely we'll gladly pay more for higher quality frames, lenses, contact lenses, because I don't have to get in my car, drive to another place, have my temperature checked, have another symptom survey, wait, and go through the process all over again. And so we've seen at HEA our members really being very successful in capturing on that convenience.
Yeah, no question. It's been a sea change in our industry, and I hear a lot of the positives lately. And on the flip side of that, you want to look out for what the real challenges are. And so I'm just curious as to the challenges you see ECPs facing, both private and corporate ECPs facing at this point.
I can speak to that because we just did a Zoom call with our docs. The big one right now is childcare.
Yeah.
Gigantic. Yeah, it's for the doctors.
Yeah.
Personally.
Yeah.
And then secondarily for their employees, which obviously has an effect on the practice. And we haven't come up with any wow, that's a great solution. We're just trying to cobble stuff together, and it's kind of happening practice by practice, community by community. But that's something that I think could really kind of bring the hammer down on the economy, us included.
What are you seeing, Katie, in terms of challenges?
Burnout. People are kind of over it and getting sick of it, and you have to make sure, especially with your staff, that they're not reflecting that onto patient care, and they're still doing all the right measures of washing their hands and cleaning and wearing masks, and just making sure we're staying on top of that. And then, doctor burnout of trying to get caught up on the patients we canceled and the surgeries that, we're social distancing cataract surgeries in our practice. So that means we're not doing the same volume daily. So our surgeons are working more, working longer hours, we've added in some Saturdays to do surgeries. We've added in a couple weekends, patient days that we didn't have at certain offices, and evenings. And so, we're asking a lot of our doctors and staff to better our patient care, but how long can we do that for? Because we want to accommodate new patients too. And so we need spaces for them. And so it's just trying to figure out that mix of how do you get in your chronic medical care, your new patients, and your annual exams.
One of the social distancing things that's not coming up is the amount of time we spend with patients.
Yeah.
C.D.C has loose guidelines around 15 minutes being the max. So with that, we have some doctors are starting to do, the patient is physically in the office, but the doctor's in a different room doing a history remotely. Just so they can stay away from the patient. And the other thing is with regard to efficiencies, that's a little bit radically different. Optometry in particular, can't speak to ophthalmology, but optometry has always been like a very, kind of welcome back to the practice, big hug, let's sit down and talk about your kids kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because we had a half-hour exam slot and only 15 minutes of clinic time, so we filled it up with 15 minutes of talk. And they're doing this remote history, and they're telling them, before I come into the room, I'm just letting you know, not these words, before I come into the room, we're not doing any usual small talk because I got to get out. So it's kind of what Katie said, they're doing like 10, 15-minute appointments, whatever it is, but they're super efficient because they're cutting the chatter.
Yeah.
For ODs, that's a radical change.
I want to turn this over to a little personal info. So I'd like to go around and ask something that most people do not know about you that you feel comfortable sharing.
So something most people know about me, I'm not your cousin, but now they know that.
There you go.
I'm a musician. I play with the former singer from Deep Purple and Rainbow. I'm a keyboard player. You can see some of the stuff in the back. Former scuba instructor at Club Med. That's a
What?
yeah, tightly kept secret. Yeah, that was another lifetime ago. But yeah, I think those are the big ones that I'm willing to share.
There you go. All right.
I wanted to be a news anchor like Katie Couric because she had the same name as me, and I definitely didn't do that. I ended up going to the eye doctor and getting contacts and thought that was like the coolest thing in the whole world, and it trumped Katie Couric immediately. But I also wanted to star in Dirty Dancing, and I practiced carrying a watermelon down multiple flights of stairs many times. So I think that's where I wear my hair curly so I can be just like Baby. And so everyone's phrase is to me, no one puts Baby in the corner.
Oh geez, I give myself all the time, and I still am not interesting enough to come up with. Let's see, I have gone sledding down an active volcano, so that's one thing.
Okay.
I practiced optometry out of the country,
Oh.
so that's definitely there's a lot of stories there. I come from a family of optometrists. My father's an OD, been in practice almost 40 years now. My younger brother's an optometrist, and Katie was actually one of my extern preceptors when I was in optometry school.
Justin and I can share our fun story together. So we had a nursing home patient that came in like that 6:00 p.m. on Friday night, and she had it was a true orbital cellulitis. So we referred her to the ophthalmologist on call at the hospital, and her husband was a colorectal specialist, and they said cellulitis, and they accidentally called him. So he came in and examined the wrong part of the body, missing completely that there was an eye problem. And I get this raging phone call, like, why did you call the wrong doctor? And I said, I didn't. I called for the ophthalmologist. You guys called the wrong doctor from the hospital. And it became a very long saga, but Justin and I did a big presentation on it that still we talk about today. And the patient is doing fine now on both ends.
Classic. Well, that sounds like a classic case of cranial rectal syndrome.
Exactly.
So before we finish up, I have a question for everybody, and this is really about your outlook for the industry, for the future of the industry at this point in time, August 5th, 2020.
I think we're going to be fine. I think we're going to be great. I think we have a lot of resources such as Reopen Eyecare, each other, Zoom calls. I think people are much more comfortable asking questions of each other and leaning on each other and not competing with each other.
Yeah.
We're working smarter, not always needing to work harder. We're getting there. So I hope I can look back at this video and say that I was right, but I think we're going to come out of this better.
I frankly think we will. Resilience is a characteristic that we probably haven't talked enough about, and how to be resilient, and how resilience is something that it's a key component of who we are. And I think what's interesting at optometry, speaking specifically of optometry for a moment, has been a profession of resilience, and how the profession has evolved for over, let's say, the last 100 years here in the U.S. And having practiced outside of the U.S., a lot of optometrists worldwide look at optometry in the United States as the pinnacle of where they can be. And again, it's taken the resilience and the effort to get there. Frankly, I've been concerned throughout my career of, as a whole, are we going to change and adapt to the way healthcare has to change, to the way patient care has to change, to the way we do have to. I'm always a proponent of our patients are our patients, but we also have to think about them as consumers. And I'm a fan of, if it ain't broke, break it, because we should break it, figure it out, and make it better. And I think COVID has really forced us to look at how we do every little thing in our offices, in our businesses, that a regular busy schedule, we don't afford ourselves the time to look at it. And I think the other benefit as well within Eyecare specifically, getting back to a comment that Gary made about how COVID was affecting the industry leaders that were on the power practice. There's always the power hour, there's always been a sense of, a little bit of animosity, but friendly animosity between the practicing eye care provider and the industry. And I think this has led us, for a lot of with those within the industry, to connect on a deeper level with those practice. And I think that is we're all accomplishing the same things. And specifically at HEA, our business exists to help the independent and to help the practitioner, all eye care providers thrive and survive. And without their success, we can't be successful. And I know Gary works the exact same way. And I would argue that every industry company our success is based on the success of the provider. And I think COVID has allowed us the opportunity to get to know each other a little bit better, to connect a little bit deeper industry and build a bit more trust between, again, the provider and the industry. And I think that collaboration for the future and the big wicked problems that we still have yet to solve in eye care for our patients, et cetera, I think it's going to help us move that forward in a far more efficient and effective way.
Fantastic. How about you, Gary? What's your outlook for the future?
My outlook for the future, you threw me a real softball question. Okay, the future's so bright.
Nice.
I gotta wear shades. Okay, can we just leave it at that? Can we do a mic drop on that one?
Hang on.
Mic drop.
Okay. On that note, yeah, here we go.
You're so prepared, Justin. I'm
we're
not.
making it happen, right? Who's got their shades on? Wasn't that great? Thank you so much to our guests, Katie, Gary, and Justin. Fantastic information. We really appreciate that. Stay tuned for future episodes of Conversation from the Zoom Room.
Conversations from the Zoom Room.